Today we're going to be starting section 19.3, which is all about measuring and locating earthquakes. So the first thing we're going to learn about are the different scales that we can use to talk about earthquakes. And then we'll move on to how do you figure out where the earthquake occurred. So what we're reading today is page 539 through the first paragraph of page 542, which talks all about the different types of scales that we can use to describe earthquakes. Earthquake magnitude and intensity. More than 1 million earthquakes are felt each year, but news accounts report only on the largest ones. Scientists have developed several methods for describing the size of an earthquake. The Richter scale, devised by a geologist named Charles Richter, is a numerical rating system that measures the energy of the largest seismic waves, called the magnitude, that are produced during an earthquake. The numbers in the Richter scale are determined by the height, called the amplitude, of the largest seismic wave. Each successive number represents an increase in amplitude of a factor of 10. For example, the seismic waves of a magnitude 8 earthquake on the Richter scale are 10 times larger than those of a magnitude 7 earthquake. The differences in the amounts of energy released by earthquakes are even greater than the differences between the amplitudes of their waves. Each increase in magnitude corresponds to about a 32-fold increase in seismic energy. Thus, an earthquake of magnitude 8 releases about 32 times the energy of a magnitude 7 earthquake. The damage shown in figure 1913 was caused by an earthquake measuring 7.6 on the Richter scale. Moment magnitude scale. While the Richter scale is often used to describe the magnitude of an earthquake, most earthquake scientists, called seismologists, use a scale called the moment magnitude scale. The moment magnitude scale is a rating scale that measures the energy released by an earthquake, taking into account the size of the fault rupture, the amount of movement along the fault, and the rock's stiffness. Most often, when you hear about an earthquake on the news, the number given is from the moment magnitude scale. Modified Mercalli scale. Another way to describe earthquakes is with respect to the amount of damage they cause. This measure, called the intensity of an earthquake, is determined using the modified Mercalli scale, which rates the types of damage and other effects of an earthquake as noted by observers during and after its occurrence. This scale uses the Roman numerals 1 to 12 to designate the degree of intensity. Specific effects or damage correspond to specific numerals. The worse the damage, the higher the numeral. A simplified version of the modified Mercalli scale is shown in Table 19.2. You can use the information given in this scale to rate the intensity of the earthquakes, such as the one that caused the damage shown in Figure 1914. And here's the scale here. Each of the Roman numerals has a little description by it that tells you some things that you might have seen or experienced during that earthquake. Earthquake intensity. The intensity of an earthquake depends primarily on the amplitude of the surface waves generated. Like body waves, surface waves gradually decrease in size with increasing distance from the focus of an earthquake. Because of this, the intensity also decreases as the distance from an earthquake's epicenter increases. Maximum intensity values are observed in the region near the epicenter. Mercalli values decrease to 1 at distances far from the epicenter. In the mini-lab, you will use the modified Mercalli scale values to make a seismic intensity map. These maps are a visual demonstration of an earthquake's intensity. Contour lines join points that experience the same intensity. They demonstrate how the maximum intensity is usually found near the earthquake's epicenter. Depth of focus. As you learned earlier in this section, earthquake intensity and magnitude reflect the size of the seismic waves generated by the earthquake. Another factor that determines the intensity of an earthquake is the depth of its focus. As shown in Figure 1915, earthquakes can be classified as shallow, intermediate, or deep, depending on the location of the focus. Catastrophic earthquakes with high intensity values are almost always shallow focus events. Deep focus earthquakes generally produce smaller vibrations at the epicenter than those produced by shallow focus earthquakes. For example, a shallow focus, moderate earthquake that measures a magnitude 6 on the Richter scale can generate a greater maximum intensity than a deep focus earthquake of magnitude 8. Because the modified Mercalli scale is based on intensity rather than magnitude, it is a better measure of an earthquake's effect on people. Okay, that's it for the reading for today. Stay tuned for the notes.